Well, thanks for taking your lunch hour to spend some time with me. I appreciate that, and appreciate those of you who raised your hands that said you've camped at KOA. I did my MBA at UCLA many, many years ago, but I always remembered executives from the LA business community coming over to the business school, and it was one of the highlights that I felt I got was sort of the personal insight to what executives were doing at that time. And I always enjoyed the personal insights that they provided beyond just running a major corporation. And I hope I can share a few of those with you today as well. As Tom mentioned, scouting has been big in my life, and I think that the career that I ended up with is an example of where you've placed your values and what you end up in. Being chairman and CEO of a company like KOA, which is based in Billings, Montana, and being involved with getting families outdoors is absolutely fantastic. And I didn't make the plans. You sit here now, and many of you are looking at a future career and what you're going to become and what you're going to do. There's no way I knew when I was a management trainee at KOA in 1972 that I'd return 27 years later to be the chairman and CEO. So don't get worried about where you're going yet, because somebody out there is going to keep an eye on you. What I wanted to do today was sort of have a little bit of fun, and instead of this formal, have I got my, do I need to point this at something?
Clicker alert. Advance it, please.
Technology. There you go, is that it? Thank you. So I want to make this more of a campfire story. So just sit back, pretend you're sitting around a big campfire somewhere. I asked for wood, but they frowned on that. And also, a little bit of the idea of there will be a s'mores test at the end, so I want you to pay attention. And the way that I like this story is it sort of starts out with, I went to see Peter Rabbit last weekend with my grandkids, and so once upon a time in the land of good, there was a company called KOA, and as I indicated to you, it's living in Billings, Montana. There are about 500 locations in this company, and the idea of being in the land of good is that things are pretty good. It was a pretty good company in the year 2000 when I got there. It had pretty good franchisees and had pretty good management. But the owner of the company wanted to take it to great. And what they really went out is they began to say, how are we going to take this wonderful company that has a good reputation, has had some good growth in it, and really bench it, dial it up. And what we did is we said we needed some help. And so we wanted to find a guide, somebody that could help us out. And this is Jim Collins, Smokey Collins we'll call him today. And Jim wrote the book, Good to Great. Hopefully some of you, especially in the business school, have a copy of this in your library. But I've used this for 35 years and I'm going to call it a map. So I've got Jim Collins providing a map to the land of great. And for those of you that haven't read Good to Great, Jim was an MBA professor at Stanford and uses graduate students to study companies that achieve great success. And he went in to try to determine what were the common denominators in those companies that indeed proved the process of getting to great. And he identified about 7 or 8 key ingredients, clues in our map to get to great. The land of great is what we're seeking. And these were the 7 clues that he really highlighted in a big way. And the first one is the one we've just talked about, is getting the fact that if you feel you're good, that's the enemy of great. That the Olympians that we just watched last week and companies that are really striving to be great, or schools like the one you're at now or the business school, you've got to accept the fact that you're just good. The next step that Collins talked about was this idea of level 5 leadership, and I think that much of the philosophy here of true engagement, no entitlements, that you're really getting down to the brass tacks of what it takes to be great students and great leaders as it relates to the business world. This was what Collins saw in the companies that really achieved great performance. He also talked about the fact, he talks about the bus. And you got a bus, you're driving down the road, you're taking it in the future with your company, and you got to focus on who you're going to put on that bus. First who, and then what. If you've got the right people on your team, you can do a lot of different things. But you got to get the right people on the bus first. And that's not something you do overnight. That's not something you do in a one hiring process. In my experience, it took years to find the right people. And as Tom said, the tough time is that you have to get some of the people off the bus. So in my case, I'm arriving at KOA in 2000. It's a given company. It's a question of, if we're going to go to great, who do I keep on the bus? Who do I have to ask to leave the bus? The idea of confronting the brutal facts, I'm going to show you an example of this, but this is like getting on the scale in the morning. You know, we're hesitant to get on that scale. And yet the only time you're going to get a sense of measurement in terms of what your true weight is step over there and get on it and find out what it is and set the goal for improvement. Hedgehog concept, again, the hedgehog is a small animal that the fox tries to, you know, it curls up and it just can't be defeated. It has this persistence of winning. And there are three elements if you're going to be a great company, a great organization within that hedgehog concept. One is you have to be passionate about something. You have to decide not about 20 different things, not about 100 different things. What are you going to be the best in the world at? What are you going to do really, really well and better than anybody else? And that sounds tough. And again, in a company, that may take years to really define. But once you get to it, you benefit from it. And then hopefully there's an economic engine associated with that that provides the revenue and the income that give you the return that you're looking for the investment laid. The last two, culture of discipline. You've got to be organized. And the idea that technology isn't just there for technology's sake. It's there to accelerate your business. So as we think about the company and our story of getting to great, again, we have to accept that we're in a land of good. We had to do that first, that we've got room for improvement. And then we had to talk about how do we get to the level 5 and first 2, the people side. And we were fortunate. KOA is a privately held company by a gentleman named Oscar Tang. And Oscar has owned this company since 1980. He's just the most wonderful individual. I'm so fortunate to have had in my career the opportunity to work for him. And this is his philosophy. When he would sit with us and talk, he said, we depend upon and support the efforts of KOA's franchisee entrepreneurs. So we're 500 locations, 30 of which we own and operate, the big stores, the islands down in the Keys of Florida, the large properties are owned and operated by KOA, but the rest are franchised, okay? So we're in the business of taking care of those franchisees, as he would indicate, and encourage family togetherness and the wholesome desire of people to see our great countries. We're in both Canada and the United States, and connect with other people. So the idea is the business and the values proposition that we're in isn't about making widgets. It's about getting people outdoors. It's about getting families together in the outdoors. That's a value proposition that every member of the staff leaves with every day and feels terrific about. That the effort that they're putting in is to try to get more and more folks out there to do that. I can't think of a business that reflects more the best values of our nations. So again, this is the top line sort of thought process. There's not a word about profitability in here. There's not I need a return on investment. In the 16 years that I worked for Oscar, he never gave me a number that I had to hit. You know, this is the way he believes. And so he went to look for a guide. And that guide and coach was someone that had had prior experience. As Tom indicated, and those of you that have any familiarity with Cal Berkeley, I was going to Cal Berkeley in the late 60s. And those were the days of People's Park and the Vietnam War. We would have tear gas every day at noon in our quad. We'd have the Oakland Police Department show up with 250 policemen. And so that was kind of a crazy time. And here I'm applying to a company in Billings, Montana, because I wanted to get in the camping business. And there was a company that I found, you know, getting through the yellow pages basically back then because we didn't have the internet. And I found this KOA, company owned Kampgrounds of America. They obviously didn't know how to spell, you know. And so I apply. And I went up, they invited me up to Billings. I flew through Salt Lake City, a little turboprop into Billings. And I learned later that, you know, even though they offered me a job at, I think, $650 a month, the only reason they wanted to see me is I was going to Billings, Montana. I mean, this is redneck headquarters. This is, you know, these guys all carry guns in the back of their trucks. This is, you know, they didn't believe there was an Eagle Scout at Berkeley, okay? So this was sort of the opportunity for me to live the scouting piece because, you know, they saw the hippies and the folks on the TV every night throwing tear gas back at the National Guard. But I got the opportunity. I was there for 2 or 3 years, decided I wanted to take a step up, went to business school. I needed finance training if I was really going to lead somewhere, but KOA sponsored my field study, so we continued to stay in touch. And then I decided to get into the casino hotel business. And I spent time in marketing, finance, and you know, eventually operations that led me to being the general manager of a huge operation there in Reno, 2,000 employees, 1,000 rooms, 156 million in revenues, and I got to do that. And that's like being the mayor of a city. You have just 24-hour a day, something's going on. But then KOA called 27 years after I had been there and said their president was stepping down. They needed to go from good to great, and would I come back? And the point here is that as I think about my education and my management experience, Harrah's is a very sophisticated, Tom's not watching. How many of you have ever gambled? How many of you have a player card? Player card? Yeah, okay. We monitor every move the customer makes. We know how much money you put in the slot machine, how much you won, how much you put at risk. We know the same thing on table games. The casino business is extremely sophisticated. I mean, we know what kind of drink you like. We know what room you stayed in last time. You want it back. So I'm sitting here in this very sophisticated environment of Harrah's, and now I'm being invited to go into the dark ages of camping. I mean, come on, this is like, holy smokes. But the opportunity for me was to define the things in the hospitality world at Harrah's and figure out which ones belonged in camping. So that was the opportunity to bring some of the skill sets and the things that are important and put them back into KOA to see if we could create competitive advantage and get to that land of great. So as we said, 2000, I headed back, and the competitive advantage was great hospitality. How are we going to do it? I'm one of these guys, I came in here 2 hours early and sat in your student union and got to go over and see the stained glass. It was fantastic, you know. I always like to get involved. So when I got to KOA, I headed out on the road, and we have a program called work camping. Many, many people in the United States, we have thousands and thousands of people that have rigs that go out to a campground for 3 months and become employees. They get paid, they work as, you know, outdoor folks, they work in the store, you name it. So I went out and was a work camper. And I did jobs, I dug holes, I cleaned cabins, I, had barbecues. I wanted to know and learn more of the business. You need to get into the business that you're going to be participating in. I also happened to buy a 42-foot motorhome. Biggest mistake of my life. But, I wanted to get into the field. This is a diesel pusher, 4 slides, had the KOA yellow put on the side of it. And we went out and hit the road with my wife. But I also had to learn to become a mechanic because we were always breaking down. We dropped 36 quarts of oil 4 or 5 times. I was a traveling environmental hazard. It was awful. But what you have to realize, anybody here in the hospitality field? There we go, okay. More of you got to get into it. Outdoor hospitality, I know it's not even in the curriculum at the business school, but we're going to get it there, okay? Outdoor hospitality is absolutely exploding everywhere. So what this is all about is that when you think about the hospitality business, when you think about business in general, when you think about people that walk into the Chevrolet manufacturing plant in Detroit or wherever it is, all of us are volunteers when we show up for the job. We're all volunteers. You're going to decide whether you're going to put your heart into it today or you're not. Your boss obviously wants you to be incredible every day, but you're not always going to be on. But if your competitive advantage is going to be part of your service and people, you want people to really understand. So part of what we have to do internally, we've got 500 franchisees out there, entrepreneurs, independent owners. How are we going to motivate them to provide great service hospitality? So we have to think about that. In order to do that, we had to confront the brutal facts. We had to figure out how to change their behavior. So when I was traveling around the country in my motorhome and also, being a work camper, I would pull into a KOA. And I'd meet the owner of the KOA, and they, hey, Jim, how you doing? I go, great. You know, they'd give me a tour, and then we'd stop, and they go, you know, Jim, I run the best KOA in America. You know, this is the best one. My campers tell me that, you know, and that's good, great. That's wonderful. I love your family. I drive down the road 100 miles, you know. Hey, how you doing, Bob? Good to see you. What's going on? Let's get a tour. Yeah, I love it. Jim, I run the best KOA in America, you know. And so after about 20 stops of I'd run the best KOA in America, it was like, wait a second. You know, I had this ongoing kind of repeat. And it was the fact that those folks that are closest to you, when you run a hotel or a campground or even a casino, your customers, your employees get to know certain customers really well. I had the same problem in my slot department in Reno. Because you'd see customers every day or every other day, and those slot employees would get to know them really well, get to know first name, know what kind of drink they want, coffee, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? There are another 100 in the campground, thousands in the casino that you don't know anything about. So we had to change the report card. We had to create a whole new process by which we were going to evaluate these camps, okay? Because I knew that I didn't have every KOA was the best in America. Somebody was on top and somebody wasn't. And so in order to begin to benchmark this, we created the camper satisfaction survey. We actually went in and grabbed that data. There's a check-in. We have a common database operation at the point of purchase program. And we went out and we asked these campers, every single KOA gets a grade. The difference here was we used to send inspectors from home office to that campground, and then they would inspect it and give a score. Now we are going to the guest, and the guest was giving us feedback, okay? Simple little move, but huge. In fact, it was no longer the home office versus the franchisee, it was the guest. And an entrepreneur behavior of someone that owns a business, when they hear feedback from their customer, oh my gosh, they change their behavior like that. Incredible. So that we also provide them a comparative basis. So here they were going to get a report each year that showed them not only what grade they got in overall satisfaction, cleanliness, all the things, they also would learn what their region did. So are they getting a 40 in satisfaction and the region's getting a 60? It began to give them a sense of where they belonged. And then we based our annual awards on the KSS, the Camper Satisfaction Survey feedback. We gave these report cards out for the first time at our convention in about 2002. It was in Reno, Nevada. And we took a break. And both the men's room and the ladies' room were full of franchisees crying. Because they realized for the first time that their rank in the system was 232nd rather than number one. And it just was this incredible moment in our history about where we came to reality. We faced the brutal facts. We realized once and for all where we stood as a system, and each owner understood what their ranking was relative to every other KOA in the system. So that was a huge moment for us. So we then had to kind of build this discipline, the components. We obviously spent a great deal of time building this delivery system. Again, this takes years, but we looked at every element in our company and began to really give it a life of its own and build from that understanding of getting customer-centric feedback and building from there. In order to have the right people, we had to create education. Today in Billings, Montana, we run KOA University. We also have KOA University Online. What do we learn? We learn about how to clean bathrooms, we learn about how to clean pools, how about to run a store, how to greet your guests, how to build tent sites, how to build RV sites. What's your market look like? What data do we have? There's probably a curriculum of 50 or 60 classes that we now offer to our franchisees because of the expertise we've built over time. I mentioned the work camper. These are people that move each season. So if I have somebody in Oregon that worked at a KOA and they want to go to Texas, they go to work at the KOA in Texas, and they already know my technology. They already know my philosophy and what I'm trying to do. So I'm able to move these people around. We have work campers that have worked 15 seasons for us. And they're not eroding their 401ks or their retirement funds at all. They're making money, they're doing fine, and they indeed love the idea of moving around the country, and they stay active. They stay engaged with the customer. So we're very fortunate to have this workforce that we can move around the country. We also have, yes, an alumni association. You know, these are people that have owned KOAs at some point in the past, you know, have worked at KOA, and we have hundreds of people that we get together for an annual alumni association event. And the great thing about these people is that if you are going to have surgery and you own a campground, who are you going to have watch it for you? This isn't like calling a babysitter. What's better than calling a prior owner and saying, could you come in here for a couple weeks and watch my campground? So the Alumni Association camp sits, okay, for $100 a day, which the KOA pays. So you're bringing in somebody to come back and watch the kids. They kind of, it's funny, sometimes the people that go away come back, the campground's in better shape than when they left because the owners that have been out there are sort of as alumni. But this has been a great program for us. I'm wearing a yellow shirt. Where did we get yellow? Well, yellow was in our legacy. We went to the highway department many, many, many years ago in the 60s and said, what color should we use for our highway signs? Yellow is the color your eye responds to first. Yellow cabs, emergency vehicles, yellow cones. It's what happens. If I were to walk out in the campus today, you'd look and see me first. This was an important color that we really didn't realize. We did that in the 60s with our signs, but we didn't convert our clothing until the middle of 2000. So we went to everything yellow. It's kind of like the UPS brown, but in the hospitality business, it's the perfect color. We've got yellow golf carts, yellow trucks, yellow umbrellas, yellow suits. I've got a tuxedo in yellow. I've got yellow socks on today. I've got a yellow watch. I've got I got 5 pairs of yellow sneakers. You know, I mean, it's easy to buy Christmas presents for me. You just find something yellow, you know. It shows up in my office. But yellow was huge, a huge impact on us. Because what it did, I mean, you can look back on it now in hindsight and say it was brilliant, but it improved the sense of staff in the campground. It also improved our overall perception of security. Because here, the 10 people that were working there, the camper now thinks there are 40 people working there because there are yellow shirts everywhere. We haven't added anybody. We just changed the color of the darn shirt, okay? So this, again, these are the decisions you make along the way in this trip that you don't realize the impact. And security is a very important consideration in selecting a campground. And the idea there's more service there, the yellow truck out at the bathroom and the golf cart going through the camp, it's just a sense that people are everywhere. And that's a very positive piece. The other thing we learned in the same process with the yellow shirt, and this becomes a competitive advantage, is that those campers that meet our owner give us a 16-point gain in satisfaction. Anybody gone to a restaurant and met the chef? Yeah, or you meet the owner? I mean, it just gives you something. The same thing is true in camping. So KOA's objective is to free up the owner so they can get out there and spend time in the campground with their camper. And we spend a great deal of time building systems that allow us to free them up. We also obviously had to build behind the scenes, you know, a program that teach them how to interact with the guests. So making it great. We use the word great again, you know, and we built this internal services marketing campaign that helped them through the greet, the relate, the explore, the act, the thank. Okay, last one, accelerators. Yes, we do a lot of in-house development. Up. Where'd I go?
Now the clicker's working.
Yeah, it works really good. Can you get me back? What did I hit? Oh, I must have hit the one down below. So what we've done is we've really built a lot of in-house systems. We have an app. We can go off and find that. We use that pretty extensive. Thank you. Next one. Nope, beyond that. Good, okay, I'm with you. I got it. I'm driving. This is kind of like driving my RV. One more. There we go. So this is the proof of the pudding, okay? This is the camper satisfaction survey. And I would, those of you that have been involved in a service environment, to move the overall satisfaction from a 45 to a 59, what is that, 7 to 12 points, whatever? It's 14 points. It was just incredibly beneficial to see this every year, getting our overall satisfaction to improve. And the NPS, anybody worked with a Net Promoter Score? Anybody been involved with that? Okay. I mean, every company in the world is using the NPS, Net Promoter Score. It's basically a question, would you refer Taco Bell to your family or friends? Or would you recommend Taco Bell? Would you recommend KOA to your family or friends? Either you're a promoter, you're on the fence, or you're a detractor. But KOA is now using this. Every day, our operators get a Net Promoter Score for how they did yesterday. And again, we went to 60% as a system, you know, a couple years ago. So we've had incredible impact. We have indeed reached the land of great. Okay, we are indeed now focused on being the best in the world at creating happy campers that recommend KOA to family and friends. So what that leads to is the fact that then other companies begin to look at you. And so a couple years ago, CBS came to KOA and said, hey, we've been watching you grow, we've been watching you go forward, and would you come on and do an undercover boss? Would someone on your staff be willing to go out and be the boss? And so we went through that process, and has anybody seen Undercover Boss? Oh, good, good. Well, this was an example where, again, you have to be the boss, you have to become someone. And here it was, okay, I'm the boss, I was selected. They want to turn me into an individual whose name is Tim Bickford. Tim is close to Jim, and my wife's maiden name was Bedford, so Bedford Bickford. And they wanted this individual to be a guy that looks like this. And he's unemployed, he's from San Francisco, he's never run a business. Not much for the outdoors, worked in a cubicle, not a people person, not company savvy, and he's a nerd's nerd. Okay, that's okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to put this individual into a bunch of campgrounds with various employees and convince, hopefully, the angel investor at the end that this guy can indeed run his own campground. So you're sitting there, you're getting converted, you know, and that was, it was sort of, we were going through this at the second or third day of this program, and they have to call Hollywood, send them the picture and say, he's close enough, let's go. And so we went. So, you know, you hesitate going into some of these things with, will you be toast, will they throw you under the bus? But it worked out so well for KOA, and has obviously given incredible recognition and done very, very well. I want to remind you of this trip we took from good to great. I again would encourage each of you to get a copy of Jim Collins' Good to Great book. It's just a wonderful, again, map on how to move companies from organizations from one to the other, and leads you forward. I also want to leave with sort of that discussion we had about a test. And that's the fact that, you know, we can talk about getting to great, but in order to be successful, you have to sustain great. The school has to sustain itself at being outstanding, extraordinary business school. You've got to sustain that. So in the world of great, there's always ways to be great some more. Have you ever had a s'more? Sure. Okay. So let's live the s'more good to great, okay? Because when you were younger, you went on a camping trip with someone, and they said they're going to have s'mores. And basically what they do is you get sent out into the wilderness. I happen to find on campus a perfect s'more stick, you know, and you come back, you've looked for hours, you find the perfect stick, and you ask your parents if you can borrow the knife. And that's one of those big milestones in your life, because you're going to get a knife. And you whittle that stick, and you make it perfect. And then your mom goes to Winco and finds these camper marshmallows that are about the size of the earth. Look at the size of that thing, man. And you cook this okay. How many of you are burners? You know, when you just burn the marshmallow? Okay. And other ones are browners. Browners? Any browners? Oh, there you go. So, browner takes the time, has the patience, gets it golden brown. But, again, this was okay. This was good, okay? But the problem is the stick burns, and if you're a real connoisseur of s'mores, you can get s'more cereal, s'more candy bars, s'more slot machines. There's s'more toys. I got s'more ornaments for my Christmas tree. S'mores, if you're really into s'mores, the taste of burning sap in a marshmallow you know, just doesn't make it. So we're going to use this as sort of, we're in the land of good. That's good. Well, we moved on. And what happened is in the 50s and 60s, we went to hangers. You know, and a metal hanger we would use, and you know, you'd get it, and what was nice for those of us that liked the brown, you could actually kind of bend a handle on it, you know, and the good news is you could use it multiple times, right? I mean, you could put it in the truck or put it where you're fishing, the wood didn't burn, you had the device. But most of the people that have done it died because there's paint in the metal hanger, okay? You know, so the paint melts inside. I mean, you probably don't realize this, but there was paint that melted inside that marshmallow, okay? So we've kind of gone from good to very good. And about, in the late 80s and 90s, we invented a whole new thing. A guy up in Idaho invented the roller roaster, okay? Now this is, I call this the iPhone of s'more cooking, okay? And what it is it's really cool because it goes any distance, okay? So, I mean, tonight in New York, you can order s'mores for dessert. They bring a little bocce to your table. So you could put this in your purse. I mean, right there, you'd be ready to go. And the thing that's nice versus the hanger, it's got two prongs. Okay, so the stick and the hanger only had, so what happens is the marshmallow stays on when it gets hot. That's innovation, okay? Innovation, two forks, okay? That's innovation. And then the other thing is the hanger, your hand burned. Well, the inventor of this put a wood handle on it, okay? So it was just absolutely, I mean, come on. But it's a roller roaster, okay? So it has a black knob, it turns. Okay, a roller roaster. For those of us that like to do, you know, the perfect browning, a roller roaster. Okay, so again, this is the, any of you have these at home? Okay, oh, yeah, God, they got it early. You've seen it before. Okay, how many of you have iPhones? Yeah, okay, but you don't have a roller roaster. I mean, but almost all of your Eagle Scouts or Gold Award, and you go camping. You know, so this was from good to great. Simple, majoring in the minors, taking it to the next level, right? Now you probably think we're done. Well, just to end the class here today, somebody came out with a battery operated, has the fork, you know, so you don't have to turn it yourself. It actually has 116 RPM. And then I said to the inventor, I said, I can't see my s'more, so he put a flashlight on it, okay? Okay, so this is going from good to great to greater. Thank you very much. I've got one of these for all of you. If you want to come down and stop by, I'll shake your hand and give you one. And there's also a KOA directory which just came out last week listing all the KOAs. It's at the back door as you go out. But come on down. I got a box of roller roasters, but I'm also happy I've got another 10, 15 minutes if you have any questions.
And this is being recorded, Jim, if you repeat the question, okay?
Oh, you bet.
You have a hand right there.
Hi, hand. Where are you? I'll use this to point at it. Where is it? Right there. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
At what point does innovation become detrimental, or how do we maintain the value that we are trying to keep the innovation?
Yeah, okay. The question was, how do we continue to extend that value that we get out of the experience that indeed was represented in all four of these, that we're still cooking s'mores, you know, that s'more piece. And this is a very key component in my business, hopefully in others. And I think it's very similar to what the dean and the Tom and the gang are doing here. When you get on an airplane today, or you go into a work environment, you are limiting yourself in terms of your engagement with other people. I can fly across the country for 5 hours. The only thing that somebody says next to me is, excuse me to go to the bathroom. There's none of that conversation that the dean and I had, blah, 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 okay? What's happening in our world is we're isolating ourselves more and more. When you sit around a campfire with that, you have genuine engagement. The campground offers you a human value of interacting with others, whether it's your kids, your parents, whatever it is. And that's common through all of this. Okay? We're just making it easier, safer, and more convenient by going to new technology. But the genuine engagement remains, and I'm going to suggest to you that what's happened is camping has stayed pretty much the same in offering that for years. We've added services, we've improved the facilities, but the rest of our society has limited our engagement that we used to have on the airplane or reach. Come on, you barely go next door and knock on the door of your neighbor, let them know their name, How often do you go into a hotel and go down the hall and knock on the door? You think you're going to get shot, So the point of all this is that at least in the camping environment, you still get that. You're there for 5 minutes. Somebody says, oh, nice dog. Oh, you went to that school? UVU, oh my God. Well, I have a kid that's there. There's that interaction. And it becomes, at the end of 2 days, it's like, whoa, what was that? That's really felt good. So I don't think we've lost that value. We're just trying to have a better or easier way to have some fun. Did I answer that a little bit? Okay. Hey, I gave this to the weatherman at a station, and sure, he went on the air pointing at the weather up in New England.
How do you deal with employees of trying to launch these new ideas and not having employees or franchisees on the same page and kind of fight back? How did you deal with that?
Well, look, the best ideas typically come from the field, which would be either your guest or your franchisee. The key to that evolution in the franchise business is called an advisory panel or something, where you bring in 18 franchisees twice a year that are focused on technology, or they're focused on marketing, or they're focused on whether we're going to make a better hamburger. And they either bring samples or something they've done in their store with them to suggest this is something we ought to roll out the entire system, or we're going to go test it. But so you get that bottom-up, idea. You have to get them engaged in your overall operation, so that they begin to feel they want to make that. And obviously you have to have an attitude of welcoming that, but you also have to set up the process that allows that to come out. One of the #1 things that we did, which was something came out of the automobile industry, was called the 20 group. And what happens in 20 groups is franchisees that have like-type campgrounds, same size, meet twice a year at the campground and go through all the financials of those 20 campgrounds and then tour the host campground. And so those other 19 set of eyes give that individual, that owner, input. Because peer-to-peer advances ideas much faster than Jim Rogers saying to the class or to my franchisees, you know what, you ought to get a roller roaster. No, if she says that to you, you'll have one tomorrow, So the peer-to-peer is really essential to us. I know if I was headed to the men's room and I heard a franchisee saying something, we ought to get those pool covers. I scored, It was great. Okay, I understand Tom's taking all of us to lunch. I don't know what restaurant here on campus holds us, but it'd be really fun. And besides that, we're going to have a fire in the middle of the business school at about 5 o'clock. I'll bring the marshmallows. You guys bring the beer. All right? Thank you.